Hey friends, on this episode, I'm going to get you started playing the bass guitar, one of the coolest instruments in the band. Yeah, I'm going to have you rocking in no time. So that's all on this episode of Everything 101. Let's get to it. So hey guys, welcome to Everything 101. So yeah, we're gonna get started playing the bass guitar today. And in this episode, I just wanna give you the very basics. I wanna talk about what kind of bass you should have. And I wanna talk about the parts of the bass and how to hold it and how to strum or pick it, I should say. And where to put your hands, things like that. I wanna give you the very basics. And also we wanna talk about how to tune the bass because there's nothing worse than trying to play an instrument that sounds horrible. It's really tough to learn on that. So, all right, so let's just jump right in. So first of all, I want to talk about this bass guitar that I have. Now, I have purposely brought a bass guitar that is, in my viewpoint, very, very accessible to anybody that's watching right now that wants to learn. People say, hey, what kind of bass do I need to get? I want to learn. Do I need to spend $1,000 or do I need to get a 5-string bass, a 4-string bass, a 6-string bass, 7, whatever, because they have all kinds of bass guitars now. So which one do I get? So I want to just tell you about this bass right here. The standard bass guitar has 4 strings. And just so you know, the 4 strings on the bass are actually tuned the same as the lower sounding strings on a guitar. The first 4 strings on the guitar going down. They're tuned the same way. So a lot of times if you can play guitar and you know the notes, you pretty much already know the notes on the bass. But if you don't, that's cool, we're gonna learn. So this is a very standard Epiphone bass guitar. Now Epiphone is really cool if you're trying to learn because you're not gonna spend $1,000, $800 on a good beginning Epiphone guitar, and they're pretty good to start learning on. And so I've seen people buy Epiphone guitars that are modeled after Les Pauls, and they love them. And so they're good guitars, especially if you're starting out wanting to learn. So this is a standard 4-string Epiphone bass guitar. I like it, it plays well. One of the things when you go to pick out a bass guitar, one of the things you want to pay attention to is when you definitely want to play it before you buy it. You want to make sure the strings are not really high off the fretboard because, and this is the fretboard right here, the wood part. And if your bass guitar, your strings are really high off of it, it's harder to push down the notes, it's harder to play, it's not very comfortable. And a lot of times people will kind of burn out before they really even get started because they just don't like the discomfort that they have when they're playing the bass. And so you want to get one that is comfortable to play. All right, now the parts of the bass are pretty simple. Here you got your tuning knobs. You turn them one way to go higher, make the note go higher, one way to go lower. And then your strings run across this part right here. It's called the nut. And then they run down here and they attach in your bridge. Now, this right here is your pickup. This is what's picking up the sound and sending it through your amp or your sound system, whatever you're playing through. So you see these lines here, those are called frets. Okay, so in between this, the nut and the first line, that's the first fret. In between these 2 lines is the 2nd fret. And this is the 3rd fret and the 4th fret and the 5th fret. And most guitars have fret markers, these dots that help you quickly identify where you are on at least the 5th, the 7th, 9th, and the 12th fret. When you get to the 12th fret, the notes kind of start over, which we'll talk about that in a minute if that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so this particular bass though also has a 3rd fret marker, so that's pretty cool. And you can see the dots on the top too, that not only they're here, they're on the top. So when you're playing, you can easily see what fret you're on in reference to those dots. Okay, now right down here, you got 2 knobs. Now some bass guitars have more knobs, but typically on one like this, you got a volume knob and you've got a tone knob. So these are controlling the pickup. They're controlling the volume of your bass in the tone, whether you want a more tinty, brighter treble tone, or if you want a more bassy tone, you would turn it down. And if you turn it all the way up, it gives you more of the treble. So an in between might be what you want. You just have to really get your bass, see what it sounds like, and then, you know, get the sound that you like. So right now, I have my bass guitar. You're gonna need on bass guitars, unless it's an acoustic bass, which, you know, those are a little more rare. Normal bass guitar, you're gonna need something to plug into. So I have a standard, what we call a 1/4 inch high impedance cable, just a standard music cable. And I'm currently running into a mixer that's running into the camera. But you can run into a sound system. If you're playing with a band, you can run into an amp. If you're sitting in your room, you can just have your own amp there. You can just play by yourself and just hear yourself with an amp if you want. But you do need something to plug into. All right, guys, so that kind of gets you started on the parts of the bass and the basics. So really quick, I want to kind of tell you how this thing is laid out, okay? So first of all, this low sounding note here that's an E, okay? That's an E. So if you were playing the low note on a guitar, it'd be an E also. All right, now, if I go up a string or down on the guitar, but it's up in terms of how it sounds, it's a higher note, I would go up here. The next one is an A. Okay, so we got an E, and then an A, and then the next one is a D. That's a D note. Okay, so we got E, A, D, and then the last one down here is G. Now notice I'm not putting my hand down on any notes, I'm just playing what we call open. If I play the string without putting my finger down anywhere, that's just called open. Okay, so now we have an E, we have an A, we have a D, and we have a G. Okay, so those are the basic 4 notes on the bass guitar. So what you want to do is you can buy let's talk about tuning for a second. You can buy a tuner. There are lots of different types of tuners. You have some that hook on to your bass up here, and you can turn them on and you can play the note and it will find what note you're on and it'll tell you if you're a little bit low or too high. So you can even get apps on your phone to tune. Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you can play a note, and then you have to just kind of look at what kind of tuner you have. Typically they have little digital meters that will be either too low or too high, and then when you get right where you need to be, it's right there in the middle, or it'll turn green or whatever. Look at your individual tuner. If you're near a piano and the piano's in tune, okay, make sure your piano's in tune if you're going to tune with the piano. You can use the E, the A, the D, and the G to tune up that way. What you don't want to do is just crank these knobs too high, because you're going to break your string. You're going to end up having to buy new strings. I've seen people get brand new strings and then they don't really know what they're doing yet, so they just crank them and crank them and crank them and then break a string. So that you don't want to crank them up too high. So use a tuner and get your notes to E, A, D, and G, and then you're set. Okay. Now, and definitely watch some videos on tuning if you need to. All right. Now I'll talk about how I hold my hands. Okay. Let's talk about the plucking hand, the picking hand. Okay, now I'm a right-handed, so I'm playing a right-handed standard bass. And if you're a left-hander, just flip everything I'm saying, okay? But what I want to do is I don't want to have my hand like this when I'm plucking the notes. I don't want to be picking the notes like this, picking them up. That's not what we do. We want to have our hand kind of loose like this down, where I'm just kind of picking like this, because that's going to give you a better sound. It's going to be easier for you to play. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you when you play the bass to rest your thumb right here on top of this pickup. And that's pretty comfortable. You can just rest your thumb there and just play the notes. All right. And so that gives you a nice, comfortable feel with your hand, and you're just playing along. All right, there you go. Now let's talk about the left hand. Okay, the left hand needs to really be right for you to be comfortable to play. All right. So I've seen people start to play guitar and they're like this. They have their hand right here against their side, and that's not cool. That's not good to do. And I've also seen people do this. That's not good to do. Okay, what you want to do is just have your arm coming right out from your bass like this. Kind of push the bass forward a little bit. Okay, push the neck forward a little bit. And that is going to allow your arm to be in a nice position, not too far that way, not too far this way. Gives your arm a nice position. Now, when you look at your hand, you don't want to have your thumb like this, okay? Because that restricts you playing. What you want to do is pull your thumb back like this, sometimes even back behind it a little bit, depending on the notes you're playing. But you want to have your hand where there's a gap in your hand right here. It's not touching the bass guitar right there. There's a gap right here, okay? And that gap keeps your fingers kind of straightened, okay? You want to have your fingers kind of coming off the bass like this, not down. You don't want to have your hand like this where you're trying to just push your hand flat against the bass. Okay, pull your thumb down, open your hand up a little bit, and give yourself some room to play. Okay, you want a little gap there. You want your fingers kind of coming straight off the neck so that you are playing like this. And that gives you a nice, smoother sound. It gives you more speed. It gives you more ability to build up your speed later. And so that's how we hold our left hand. All right, now that's all I want to do in this video. In the next episode, I'm going to get you actually start playing notes. But in the meantime, this is what you want to do. You might want to just make sure your bass is tuned. Make sure you know how to hold it. Make sure you know how to hold your hands. Okay? And you might want to just start working on playing some notes. Just try to go open, 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 just all the way up and down. Open notes all the way up and all the way down. And if you want to, you can even start going like this, trying to play some fret notes. But if you're gonna venture out and start doing that, what I want you to do is make sure that on the first fret, you're using your first finger. Second fret, you're using your second finger. Your fingers are 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? Your index finger is 1, 2, 3, and your pinky is 4. So make sure that your first finger is on the first fret, second on the second, third on the third, fourth on the fourth. And when you go up to the 5th fret, make sure you're using your pinky. So you can do little exercises like this. Okay, and then go to the next string. Okay, and then go to the next string and the next string. And that'll get you used to just playing, picking, and moving your fingers around on the fretboard. Okay? Well, guys, that should get you started. In the next lesson, I'm going to start teaching you the names of all the notes on the fretboard, and we're really going to get you playing, all right? And later on, we'll be doing licks and scales and all kinds of stuff, okay? Well, that's it for this episode, my friends. Hey, be sure to click subscribe and the notification bell so you never miss any of the great lessons that come out on Everything 101. I'll see you in the next episode. See you soon.